Good afternoon. I'm Emily Harmon, and I'm the director of the Department of Navy's Office of Small Business Program. Welcome to our Facebook Live event on Seaport. And here I have Susan Tomeko. And Susan serves as the director of Undersea Systems Contracts Division and at NAVSEA, Naval Sea Systems Command. And I will let her explain how being the director of the Undersea Systems Contracts Division makes her the head of Seaport. I don't really understand that. I never have. I don't know if you do. Okay, so Susan's going to kind of kick it off, and then we've got Stacy McQuaige here as well. So it's kind of hard to fit 3 people in front of the camera. So I'm going to move over here, and these guys are going to lead the show.
Okay. Let me scoot over.
Got it.
There we go.
Hi, I'm scooting in.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to our Facebook Live session, and thank you to Ms. Harmon for joining us. I am Susan Tomeko. I am the Seaport Program Manager, also the Director of Undersea Systems Contracting at the Naval Sea Systems Command. Those 2 duties of mine are not related at all. They're just a couple of my hats. I have a couple other hats too, but we don't need to get into that. We're here to talk about Seaport. As most of you all know, we awarded close to 2,000 contracts in December 3rd to be exact, for our new Seaport Next Generation, which is Seaport NXG for short. That's what we want to talk mostly about. The old Seaport E is still in existence and will be for some time, as task orders can be awarded on Seaport E up until December of 2019, and they can last for 5 years. So until and unless the newly awarded EPS, Electronic Procurement System for the Navy, takes over the Seaport functionality, which is the plan, Seaport will be alive and well until then. So we are anxious to take your questions. Please send them in. We have people waiting to jot them down and pass them to us so that we can hopefully answer everything you guys have to ask. We have been trying to get out to industry and to government. We started with the Charleston Defense Contractor Association. We've been to, so that was in Charleston, South Carolina. We also did San Diego recently and Norfolk, and we'll be going up to Newport, Rhode Island in June. We're also doing Sea, Air, and Space here in DC. That's in May. And Gold Coast in San Diego, which is in July. So hopefully you've had a chance to hear us at one of those events. If not, mark your calendars for one of the upcoming events. Or get your questions in today. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Miss Stacy McQuaige sitting next to me. She is the deputy.
Hi.
And I will let her.
Yeah. So since there's no questions yet, we're going to kind of go over what Seaport is, because we get a lot of questions on that just in general. So what is this Seaport thing that we're running? You hear about it all the time. Hey, the Navy uses Seaport. Get on Seaport. How do I do business with the Navy? Well, so Seaport is twofold. It's an IT electronic system in which houses the Seaport MACs, in which MACs are the multiple award contracts. So we have Seaport E, which is our original enhanced, which basically was the electronic, putting them electronically into a portal, and then our Seaport NXG that was recently awarded. So 2 contracts in 1 IT portal called Seaport. Within that right now, Susan already kind of touched on it. The Seaport EMACs are set to expire this December. So Seaport NXG is what replaced those MACs. If you, we awarded about 1894 contractors onto the Seaport NXG. If you're one of the contractors who did not get on, we will hold another rolling admissions, but it'll be probably 2 years out so that we can get acclimated to our current vendor base. And then we'll open it back up and get more people on again.
Stacy, how do we know when? How do we know when the rolling admission will occur?
So rolling admissions is announced on the portal so that all the current subcontractors and primes know that it's coming. So that's step one. You can get with the team and you'll know that it's coming. And then we also announce it on FBO, which is FedBizOps for the Navy. That's our portal for all of that. So we'll announce it probably 6 months in advance.
Sometime this summer.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So a year in advance. We'll figure out the schedule.
I mean next summer.
Next summer.
No, but we will communicate early and often
Yeah.
with industry through various means, including our public website, which is www.seaport.navy.mil, which is woefully out of date right now. And one of the things on our list of things to do is to get that website modernized and up to date and start communicating more on that, since it is public website and anybody can get to it. We can put information there. We will also, like Stacy said, be advertising on FedBizOps, which is a government-wide portal or website where you can get information. And we will also on our Seaport portal, for people that are already on Seaport, have information there. So there's going to be lots of communication. You won't be able to miss it. But we will do that early and often so that everyone will know the tentative schedule for the rolling admission, which, as Stacy said, is going to be about 2 years from now. So 6 months in advance of that, we'll start communicating. Well, we communicate before then, but you'll see.
Yeah. So
we got a question.
we got 2 questions. So we'll do questions real quick, and then I'll go into who uses Seaport E in NXG on the government side and how you interact with them. So our first question is, for Seaport NXG at the task order RFP level, specifically a set aside, is a company's socioeconomic and or size status reevaluated prior to the award? So, so your size status is what you won your MAC as. If you were large when we awarded it, you're going to stay large for 5 years. We use the 38.5 exemption and for the NAICS code that we use, and that's 541330. So you will stay large or small for 5 years, no recertification, mandatory recertification until the 5-year mark. The only time you're going to have to mandatorily recertify for that is if you acquire another business or you get acquired, and then now you're on Seaport, because now you're basically a new company because you've been acquired. So that's the only time that we're mandatorily making you do it. For socioeconomic, that will be at the task order level. When you submit your proposal, the contracting officer will check at that point in time to make sure that you meet the socioeconomic standard at that time.
And they're going to check SAM.
Yeah. So keep your SAM up to date. Question 2. Do you have a breakdown on how many small and how many large? Of course we do.
We do, and we're very proud of the fact that over 80% of the NXG MACs were awarded to small business. It's about the same proportion as it was under Seaport E. Very good small business statistics, not only with the number of companies that were awarded the MACs, but also the small business participation. Actual small businesses, bidding and winning work in Seaport E, which we expect to continue in Seaport NXG. Stacy's got the actual numbers, I think.
Oh, yeah, for the actual numbers of
the actual numbers of awards.
So that was the percentage breakout. So their actual, we had 1,553 small business awards and 320 large businesses.
1,533 small businesses received a Seaport MAC.
Yeah, so those are the statistics. So far, there's over 100 solicitations that are in Seaport NXG right now, getting ready to be released. Not released yet, but getting ready. So there's lots of work that's coming.
But there's some on the street.
Yeah, there's a couple that are still on the street, and we actually have the fastest awarded task order gets to go to the Marine Corps under NXG. They awarded their first task order.
Yeah, they get a special prize.
Yeah, so. And they didn't even call for help, so they did it.
That's amazing.
They just rock and rolled and got that done. So waiting for more questions. I'm going to go into a little bit of who uses Seaport. So on the government side, the NM cards has mandated that Seaport be considered as a now a category management tier 1 tool in your toolbox to do contracting. So what does that mean? What does consideration for use mean? It means it's not mandatory that you automatically get in there and use it, but it is mandatory that you consider it, and you do have to ask permission to not use it. If you're not within our 23 functional areas in our scope, then you don't have to consider it because it doesn't fit. You have considered it, it doesn't fit. Also, if you're doing sole sources, those are not allowed in Seaport. So those are done outside of Seaport, and all sole sources, if you have something that you need sole source, if you're a vendor, your requirements office will have to work with their contracting office to do that, and it won't come through Seaport.
So let me just expand on that a little bit. There's two very important words. First one is support. Seaport is for support services, not all services. So if the requiring activity, and Seaport is used by the entire Navy, the requiring activity has a requirement for support services that fall within the 23 functional areas of Seaport, they must consider, and that's the other important word, they must consider Seaport before anything else. So it's mandatory. So, and it is a pretty high bar that's required by DAS and AP. You have to submit a determination of finding to DAS and AP saying why you think it's in the best interest of the government not to use Seaport for your support services that fall into the 23 functional areas of Seaport. Why is it in the best interest of the government not to do so? So for most cases, you know, Seaport will be used, and we do expect a bit of an uptick in the usage of Seaport now that that NMCARS change, which happened last November, has made the use of Seaport basically mandatory for the entire Department of the Navy. And remember, the Department of the Navy includes the Marine Corps.
All right. So we have some more questions.
Cool.
I'm assuming Seaport NXG contains the same functional areas as Seaport E. Yes, we just split them out a little bit more. It's the same. They're the same functional areas. Does the scope include development contracts in accordance with FAR Part 35, NAICS 541715? And will Seaport team provide scope reviews to determine if an action is appropriate for NXG?
What's FAR Part 35?
R&D, the R&Ds.
Oh, it can.
Yeah.
It might.
Yeah, so for size status and all of for determining size status with using your NAICS, we only use the one 541330. So if you can purchase items that fall into that R&D category for support. I'm trying to think, because it says, I guess a better question is what's the difference between the NAICS, between them R&D efforts. So my first thing is funding type. So if you're doing true R&D efforts, then it's 100% R&D. Seaport allows for its support services. So a lot of the funds that flow through there are OMIN type and R&D, because you do buy some of the support services to the R&D thing that you're doing in Seaport. If you're doing strictly R&D, I mean, it could be a reason not to use Seaport depending on what you're buying. What is in that R&D, and if you need to use that NAICS for any particular reason.
Right. Because again, true R&D wouldn't necessarily be support services.
Right. This was supposed to be for getting more support services. And do we do scope reviews? So no, we'll get to that a little bit later. The contracting office that does Seaport, it's literally one contracting officer and one contract specialist. We leverage technology a lot.
Yeah, and we're the program office.
Yeah, and we're the program office. And so we leverage technology a lot to get the job done in Seaport in order to manage all of those. And so we just don't do scope reviews. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't help every once in a while if you give it to us, but we also don't want to step on any contracting officer's toes and say, oh, this is the scope, this is whatever, when that's the contracting officer. Is this question
from a government?
Oh, I don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Well, if this question is from a government person asking about do we do scope reviews, the person that you should really go to is your Seaport Governance Board member. So every government activity has a person designated to be on our Seaport Governance Board, and that person should be able to help you determine whether or not your scope falls into Seaport or not.
Right. So some other questions are rolling in too. So the next question are, well, this is what we wanted. So
Yeah.
a little conversation. Are subcontracting plans required at the task order level? So we look at subcontracting plans as big P, little p. So subcontracting plans were required at the MAC level, at the base contract level, which we reviewed for all large businesses. And that has an overarching what the large business is going to do across its time in Seaport. And that time crosses hopefully 10 years. It's a 5-year base period and then an option year for another 5 years. So at the task order level, contracting offices can ask for what I call a small business contracting approach or a small business subcontracting plan, little p. And that's where you just say, for this particular effort, we want 20 to 25% set aside and subcontracted out. And so that whatever you want in that plan is up to the contracting officer to develop that part.
It's also up to the contracting officer to decide if they want any evaluation criteria addressing the extent of subcontract.
You can add that as one of your evaluations, and that's been pretty successful to make sure that you're getting that percentage.
I think it might be a good time to point out the fact that as the Seaport, we're from NAVSEA, and we kind of run the Seaport program for the entire Department of the Navy, but it's up to the buying commands and it's up to the individual PCOs really on how they kind of utilize Seaport. We have some governing rules, if you will, standard operating procedures, but there's a lot of flexibility in how the various activities decide to use Seaport.
And the next question is NAVAIR required to utilize Seaport in XG as a preferred vehicle? And the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
They are, again, there were some other MACs that were awarded at NAVAIR, and those got permission to be awarded outside of Seaport. So NAVAIR should be using Seaport. So that kind of leads back into, I'll just readdress that if you haven't gotten on Seaport now, we are going to open up for rolling admissions in 2 years. So if you didn't know that NAVAIR was going to use it, we're going to get people back on and they'll use it. Compared to the old Seaport E, did you award more under Next Gen?
We haven't awarded anything yet. Well, there's one.
Yeah, we only have one task order so far. So as far as a cumulative number for how many subcontracting awards are going out or task order awards are going out, we don't know that yet.
Oh, maybe they mean MACs.
And then for MACs, so that's kind of a evolving question. So every year when we did Seaport E rolling admissions, we awarded more and more every year. So we started out with just 121 MACs, and then it grew to
over 3,000.
Yeah, over 3,000. But that 3,000 number was basically an annual addition of 400 to 600 vendors a year instead. So we awarded less. If you look at the cumulative number, there's 3,000 vendors in Seaport E right now, but that's over 10 to 15 years of growing a program. And we awarded half of that, or about half of that, to 1894.
But in Seaport E, we also never off-ramped anybody.
Right.
And are we going to off-ramp people in NXG?
So our plan is that we want everybody to bid. We want all of the small businesses, all of the large businesses who participate in Seaport NXG to bid, go out there, be hungry. It's a fishing license. Look at everything. See if it fits what you do and, do business with the Navy. If it's not working out for you and nobody is bidding, and we're looking at like if you don't put any proposals in, not just you didn't win, but if you're not putting any proposals in, that we're probably going to off-ramp at the option year.
At the 5-year point.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Emily. I'm going to chime in here.
Sure.
You would not believe how many companies I meet that say, we haven't won anything on Seaport. And I say, have you submitted a proposal? No.
Good point, Emily. You can't, so that's true.
You can't win if you don't play.
A lot of the companies work really hard to get the award at the Seaport MAC, and then they think that work is just going to come their way. Well, that's not how it works. The Seaport MAC, Stacy just called it a fishing license, and that's a good analogy. Basically, that you are now part of the so the companies that are competing under Fair Opportunity FAR Part 16 for Seaport task order competitions. So what you need to do is, look at all the opportunities that are coming out on Seaport and actually submit a proposal. We have more?
Oh, more.
Good.
Will there be a crossover matrix as to those awards on Seaport E to Seaport NXG for planning purposes? So
that's a good question.
So right is no. So right now you can tell the answer is no. We haven't thought of doing that. But what we have told contracting offices, again, they run their own procurements, is to reference their old, when they do their RFI announcements or when they do any pre-solicitation or even when they start their actual solicitation, that they reference the old contract number, which would be an old Seaport E contract number. So you should be able to link that this is the recompete of something or the split out of something that was previously done under Seaport E.
Right. Another thing we're telling the contracting offices to do is the very first word in the title of their opportunity should be the location. So if you're only interested in San Diego or if you're only interested in Dahlgren, and that's the first word, it'll be easier for you to sort through and only look at the opportunities that interest you.
And then, will Seaport achieve Tier 3 best-in-class status in the future?
Who are these questions coming from?
Wait a minute.
So we're very proud of our Tier 1 designation, and it wasn't easy. Tier 1 designation means we're agency-wide. So we are Department of Navy-wide, and that's what got us the Tier 1 designation. In order to be best in class, you have to be government-wide. That would be pretty amazing. Probably not going to happen, especially since we do have the new EPS, the Electronic Procurement System contract was just recently awarded. And that new system is supposed to take over for SPS for the Navy and also for Seaport. So that happens.
And so we'll see. So right now, yeah, I mean, right now we're going to make it the best Tier 1 that the Navy can have. And if we can grow it, we'll grow it. And that will probably be a decision way above NAVSEA's control.
Right.
If it grows to a Tier 2 even, or then a Tier 3. But we're definitely going to try to make it the best Tier 1 that's out there. So.
And how are we going to do that?
Goodness.
Well, part of it, so I've been doing a lot of these industry days and we get a lot of these questions. And one of the things we're trying to do, and I keep saying trying to do, but basically, you're looking at the program office. So, and we're both like kind of part-time, or at least I am. Anyway, so one of the things we're trying to do is do more standardization across the Navy with regard to RFPs, how we post the opportunities, sections L and M. I think it would be a lot easier for industry if sections L and M looked more the same, and if the evaluations were conducted more the same across the Navy. It would make it faster to do proposals, and it would make it faster to do evaluations. And we know that in the past, especially at NAVSEA, Seaport evaluations have been taking quite a long time, even without discussions. We're trying to compress that timeline, and one of the ways we think we can get there is by standardization.
Okay, so I'm going to read the questions because people are typing in some pretty long questions, and we're kind of handwriting.
Okay.
I'm going to read the question, and this one's not too long, but is a DCAA audit required before task order award, or a DCMA approved accounting system okay for task order award?
Yes, for a cost type contract or a flexibly priced contract, you will need to have a, we hate using the word approved accounting system, but yes, you will have to have gone through an accounting audit and get it approved. So what we do at the MAC level is when we make the award, we go ahead and we have somebody who goes ahead and starts setting that up. So when contractors contact our person at headquarters who helps liaison this with DCAA and DCMA, they go ahead and start the audit. So once you've started the audit, because of the checklist that we've developed and the way that we help small businesses, because it's typically small businesses that don't already have them, we have like a 95 pass rate at the end of this. So like 95% of everybody does pass the audit. And so you don't have to have it stamped approved the day you win the Seaport MAC. You just have to have already done the checklist, sent it to headquarters, gotten confirmation that you are under audit, and they're taking that, and as contracting officers, we're making the determination that it's low risk at that point because we're getting you through
the award of a task order.
Right. So you don't have stamped approved, but you do have stamped low risk that we've gotten you through the wickets to get to approved.
And then the first voucher goes through the process.
Right. Because you can't technically be approved until you've actually accrued cost and proven that you can be approved. So we want you to get that first voucher through and then stamp you.
And then you're approved.
Yeah.
By
CMA. So we maintain that. That's all done through headquarters. You don't have to do a specific audit at the task order level unless it's a contractor who never did it at headquarters. If they didn't know to turn that in and they didn't do it yet, then yeah, they're kind of behind. And then you might have to do it at that task order level if you want to continue to try to award to them. For cost type, for fixed price, have at it. You can go ahead and bid.
So can you please remind us of what the authorized ordering offices are? Who can place orders against Seaport?
That would be all 5 Syscoms. So NAVAIR, NAVSEA, NAVSUP, SPAWAR, NAVFAC, ONR, Marine Corps, and all of their field activities.
And SSP, if they wanted to use it in MSC.
So there is some question on NAVAIR. So someone said, I thought NAVAIR had opted out of using an XG. And then someone else said, we understand NAVAIR did have some previously completed contracts that had been waived for use relative to mandatory next-gen use. However, please understand these contracts are very focused on the program management offices or certain technical areas. So will NAVAIR have to use next-gen for all of their support services, which are defined in the Navy Marine Corps Acquisition Supplement Annex 22 for all their services work, which is a lot, that were not previously competed prior to the Next Gen award.
Okay, so let's take this in pieces. NAVAIR did announce their intention not to use Seaport before the NMCARS change happened, making Seaport mandatory for consideration. So I think there was some confusion. And again, we're NAVSEA, and so we can't really speak for NAVAIR. But the NMCARS change, that was in November, made the consideration of Seaport mandatory. NAVAIR did get their determination and findings process, the waiver, whatever you want to call it, to do a couple of service procurements outside of Seaport. Those are existing vehicles now. Please understand that the NMCARS does require you to revisit that determination at each option exercise. So they have to do that. So NAVAIR has to, at every option exercise, they have to get the redetermination done again. Now, as far as their other requirements, upcoming requirements, it's the same process. So now that Seaport, consideration of Seaport is mandatory, they're going to have to go through the same process. So, I can't speak for Mr. Dwayne Weaver, who is the ultimate authority in improving the DNFs at DAS and AP. Some of those procurements may get the approval not to use Seaport, and some might not.
Interesting. Okay, so the new NMCARS, which is the Navy Marine Corps Acquisition Supplement, requires this might be from a contracting officer, they're citing the reg. 5237-102 requires agencies to consider Seaport for functional areas. If an action is for R&D funding only, and is not for R&D support services, considering Seaport, and therefore a DNF would not be required, correct?
I'm going to say that's how I would interpret it. I would say yes.
Right. So again,
but I probably want to float it past Dwayne.
So here's the process. Okay. You have a requirement. The government activity has a requirement. They define, what is that requirement? What is the NAICS code of that requirement? What is the product service code of that requirement? What is the description of that requirement? Okay, you look at all of those various things, and if it falls within the 23 functional areas of Seaport, which is support services in 23 different functional areas, and you can read the description, it's right in the NMCARs. That'll be a contracting officer decision, then you must consider Seaport. If not, then it's not a Seaport, then it's not Seaport, and you don't have to do the DNF, and you just do your procurement.
Some people logged in a little late, so they want to know who we are. I'm on the side. I'm Emily Harmon, the Director of Department of Navy's Office of Small Business Programs.
I'm Susan Tomeko. I'm the Seaport Program Manager.
And I'm Stacy McQuaige, the Seaport Deputy Program Manager.
Okay, so it's really easy to make a mistake logging into Seaport Portal, which automatically locks you out. Are there any efforts to improve the portals?
I don't understand the question.
Okay.
So the only thing I can think of that I'm going to try to elaborate. So there's been some issues with the timing, and it's not a Seaport issue. It's the backbone that we ride on, and it's we have some timing issues between the NMCI backbone that we ride on and the actual pushing of a button in Seaport and you receiving the two-factor authentication. So if you're a contractor. So on the contractor side, there's a two-factor authentication, and there's a little time lag between when you get the email and when it was sent to you. And then by the time you go back in, you get logged out and you get kind of into a do loop.
Oh.
It's the do loop of doom. Mm-hmm. So we are working on the timing to try to get the timing upped for the vendor portal side, but there's only so much we can do for security reasons. But we are going to work on it. It's a complex task when we don't own the backbone that we're riding on. Mm-hmm. So, and then for contracting folks, if you're in Seaport, there is a 15-minute timeout while you're working, and a pop-up will come up that says, would you like to stay logged in? And you need to make sure you are pushing that button and not canceling it or leaving the page, because again, that's another thing that we cannot bypass. We have to have a 15-minute timeout. So push the button and save.
A 15-minute timeout for what?
For working in the portal. So every 15 minutes, it needs to know that you're alive in there. And so on a
like if you walk away.
If you walk away and go to the restroom,
in.
You need to save it before you go to the restroom or anything like that. And if you're typing in the actual blocks, that doesn't count as doing a hard save. It's not a hard action. Each one of those letters you're typing doesn't count as a new second. It's every hard action in Seaport, so it's a save. It's like a save button action or toggling to the next page. Those are functions that would get you to have a save, and then the timer should start over.
And then tell them about keeping your accounts active.
Right, and then keeping your accounts active.
30 days.
It's every 30 days for both vendor and Seaport users, government Seaport users. In. Yeah, so you have to log in, and that's another one that we can't change. It's every 30 days.
So I hear that NextGen is recognized as a best-in-class contract. Can you let us know what document shows it's officially considered to be along the lines of best-in-class?
Well, not.
It's not.
It's tier one.
Tier one.
Not best in
Can you
class.
explain the different levels? Like,
yeah. So best in class, and this is a federal GSA designation. Is it GSA or is it OMB?
OMB.
I think it's OMB. So the designation is if you are best in class, then you're government-wide, which includes federal. So everybody in the entire federal government, I mean, including DOD, right? But everybody in the entire federal government can use your vehicle. You're best in class. Tier one is agency-wide. So that's what Seaport is because we're Navy-wide. What's tier three? Tier 2 and 3? It's less than that.
DOD department-wide.
No, it would be less.
Oh, less than that, zero.
Less than tier one.
Yeah, no. After tier one comes zero. It's just any other contract that falls.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
Any contract that falls out.
So, but where are we designated as that? I don't know.
Yeah. Besides on a listing that gets published. I mean,
gets published by
OPM.
Yeah. So they have like this website on category management and best in class.
Yeah, it's called the Acquisition Gateway.
The Acquisition Gateway, and they list the different contracts and the tiers that they are.
Yeah, and so you won't find us under best in class. We'll be a tier one.
Tier one. Mm-hmm. So do you see DASN getting tired, for want of a better word, continually approving waivers for NAVAIR over the next few years? It sounds like NAVAIR expects to get every one of their support services requirements waived as they go forward.
we can't speak for Daz.
Right.
Yeah.
So Lee Platt just commented, I just logged in and got my authorization code in seconds.
Good.
Yeah. And she's in Hawaii.
Yeah. Well, I was
So
gonna say, and
you've got
sometimes
people
it
all
also
over.
depends on your. I should have said it also depends on your company's filter. So if you have something that's blocking it, a firewall that blocks the emails or reroutes it to like several different destinations before it gets to you, then that may cause some of the timing too.
Okay. You got people from Georgia, Florida, Hawaii, DC, the state of Washington. You got people all over listening in.
Well, we awarded MAX to 46 states, the District of Columbia and Guam.
Yep.
So there were only 4 states that weren't represented with a company that received a MAX.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I don't have any more questions coming through. So
Okay.
are there any other things that you feel
mean,
like
we
we
covered
should
What
have?
else did we want? We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of it. The awards, our plans for rolling admissions, and one.
Right.
Functionality. I mean, we could talk about, I know a lot of people are like, who are the syscoms that use it? We can name off the syscoms, but each ordering activity under that syscom has to get set up in Seaport to use it. So if you have an ordering activity that hasn't been set up yet, we can handle that here in the program office. We can set up those ordering activities to use it. Because I know some people don't have drop downs because they thought they may never use it.
Here's a question. For market research, would it be possible to add a vendor security clearance levels in their company profile?
I don't know that we want to store all of that. I'm thinking for PII purposes because of what we would, I don't know that we want to store that
Yeah.
and then be responsible for updating. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
because they change. I mean,
And we've got the cyber police after us all the time too.
So do you have anything else that you want to talk about, or you want to just say that you're going to be at
So we do have some upcoming events. We will be at Sea, Air, and Space, which is, when is that? May 7th?
7th.
Is that the day we're going to be there?
yeah, we're there May 7th.
We're there May 7th. 8 to noon is the Office of Small Business,
We're 10 to 11.
and we'll be there from 10 to 11.
Right there. Oh, so now questions are coming in. Okay.
In bulk.
We get an error message when using an XG in Microsoft Edge browser. That is not a secure browser. Will this be updated in the future?
So Microsoft Edge is not one of the preferred ones that we tell you to use. We still tell you to use Internet Explorer as the first one. Yeah, and then Chrome in a pinch, and then Edge isn't really on the list.
Yeah.
Okay. Does Seaport Next Gen have a clause selection tool similar to SPS, or do clauses need to be cut and pasted from acquisition.gov?
Oh, so you can so Seaport's role-based, and so it's kind of sparsed out by DODAC. So by each ordering activity, they have access to all the contracts in their ordering activity, and you can actually set up a clause template. There's a template loader in Seaport E that you can select all the clauses in that way. There's not a master clause list that we maintain like Seaport, but I mean like SPS, but even in SPS, you're still doing that at your command level. I mean, that's still run by NAVSE, updates their own clauses, SPAWAR updates their own, but there is a functionality in Seaport that you could load that for each of your ordering activities.
What's the anticipated time period between submittal of a proposal and contract award?
Again, that's up to the individual procurement. It's been running a long time, longer than it should be, sometimes 2 years, which is ridiculous. So that is something that we're, especially at NAVSE, I mean, that is something that we're trying to shorten those timelines.
I know there's a lot of attention across the
There's a
Department
lot
of the
of
Navy
attention.
on
Speed, yeah.
speed and
Urgency, speed,
how long it takes to get contracts awarded. and-
Yeah.
absolutely.
But it's not just the contracting process, it's the whole acquisition process. It's not just contracting fault. Or not
Right,
fault,
yeah.
but
It's
you're
not
not the
just
only ones.
from PR to award, because there's a lot that happens before the PR even gets to contracts.
Right.
Which, contracts is a part of that acquisition planning process too. But the entire acquisition cycle really starts from when the program manager submits his budget, right? when he palms for that money. Like when you have submitted the budget, I have a requirement in the future. That's when the planning should start.
Right. So one question here was, what are your roles, if any, during task order source selection?
Our roles?
Yeah, your roles.
No,
and
we stay out of it. I mean, each contracting office has its contracting officers who are reviewing, developing those technical requirements, for the technical evaluation requirements and all of that sort of stuff. We stay out of that. I mean, the only thing that we would offer to help is if we could get like best practice templates that we could share across all the syscoms, and if we all can come up with, a lot of the time lag is in the evaluation of these task orders. So if we can come up with standardized task order evaluation criteria, maybe even how we evaluate them, like with worksheets and things like that, and everyone's doing it the same, and proposals are submitted in the same way, like everyone uses the same cost summaries, everyone uses a similar format or page
you can
layout.
be able to do that?
Yeah, that's why I said we're going to become the best tier one we can. We're going to try. We're going to try to template it, and it'll just take all of us working together across all the syscoms, so it works for everyone. NAVSE, I know, doesn't want to dictate it for everyone. I mean, we want it to be everyone involved.
So if you're a subcontractor bidding, do you need to upload your documents separately within the portal? Okay.
We would like you to. So if you're a subcontractor, you need to put in a formal teaming arrangement, and your prime does that. You give the prime all of your information so that we can electronically link you to the portal and you can have access. And then they link you, your prime will link you to your bid package, like whichever solicitation that you're going to be bidding on. And then you can upload your own unsanitized proposal. And if for some reason that's not working, like the portal's down or you didn't get your teaming request in time, I mean, you can always ask your contracting officer at the task order level if they'll take it via email.
Here's a question we didn't answer. Is there a dollar threshold to use Seaport? No.
No. I mean, we don't do SAPs.
Right.
So I would say 100,000.
Well, that's 250.
Yeah, 250 now.
250,000 is the simplified acquisition threshold. If you're doing a simplified acquisition, you wouldn't use Seaport for that. So it's any non-simplified acquisition, basically over 250,000. You could. They're not typically that small. But
no, I've seen some that you have like one person with 1 man year, maybe.
Yeah.
And you put 1 man year
Could
in there.
be.
Yeah.
But there's no rule about that.
What's the anticipated time frame between a RFI, request for information, and the actual issuance of the solicitation? I know that depends too.
Yeah.
That depends. And one of the things that we were trying to get is people to give more feedback during the. A lot of times vendors will put in the RFI effort, and they don't know if they even met it. Like they won't know if they met it.
They never get any feedback.
Yeah, there's no
especially
feedback.
for the small businesses. That's
DAS
it's not helpful, right?
Yeah, DAS and AP has a memo out that says we're supposed to be giving the feedback.
We're supposed to be giving on all procurements, right? Not just Seaport. Yeah.
Yep. Someone says, we appreciate the ease by which subs can be added to the vehicle. Thank you for that.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, and when we went out with the solicitation for NXG, we required all of the prime offerers to go ahead and submit a spreadsheet that showed who they intended for their teammates to be with their cage code and other information, just to get them thinking about it, so that when we did the vendor registration, it was easier because you already had all that information at your fingertips because you had to submit it with the proposal, so that you could get everybody on the portal registered and ready to go.
We understand that your staff can't answer for the DASN's thoughts on the NM cars and NAVAIR waiver requests. Who would a group of Navy businesses want to chat with at DASN to more completely understand Big Navy's thoughts on next-gen waivers and enterprise approaches to implementing contracting efficiency?
Dwayne Weaver.
Dwayne Weaver.
Mr. Dwayne Weaver. He is the senior services manager for the Navy, and the DNFs go to him. I'll have to call them after this.
Well, and they actually have a website for the strategic sourcing office there, that SSPO, which they're going to rename category management, I think. And I forgot to bring their email address.
At SSPO? At the Navy level?
Yeah, they.
Okay.
If you email their generic.
Oh, Roger.
Yeah, help desk. They'll help funnel it to where it needs to go.
That's
yeah.
right.
So why don't you get us that, and then we'll put it in
we
the
can post
comment.
that in there.
We'll put it in the
Post
comment.
it.
Well, next gen have in the ConUps section a sample of fair opportunity selection criteria.
We would like to. So that was one of the things that we don't have in the ConOps right now, because we didn't want to mandate it. We could have posted one in there right away and said use this, but we want to make sure it fits everyone and that it's a true template where you can, plug and play in there. So we just need a little more feedback from the Syscoms.
Are we required to add subs right now, or can we do it on a task order level?
Mm-hmm.
You can
wait.
Mm-hmm. You can wait.
Just remember, when you submit your teaming request, it does take a few 10 days or whatever.
Oh, we say 4. 4 is max. We'll get to it.
Yeah, but it does take a few days, so you don't want to wait too long.
Are you planning on having an industry day prior to the beginning of rolling admissions?
That's a good question.
Yes, we'll work it in the schedule. And we can do it.
Can't hurt.
Yeah.
You could even do it virtually.
Yeah,
Right.
a virtual industry day would be good, because we're trying to get to everybody across the entire country. So, okay, thanks. Yeah, that's good.
Well, I think we're done, right?
All right.
I think that's it. Let me just say, somebody commented on here, congratulations on your retirement. And I don't know how many people know I am retiring, but it was announced yesterday when I was in Charleston. So I am retiring. My last day of work is going to be on the 31st of May. And Mr. Jimmy Smith is taking over for me, and we're starting turnover. Right now, he's a Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy working for Secretary Gertz. So we're starting turnover, and he will actually be speaking at Sea Air Space, which is a good reason for you all to attend Sea Air Space.
Yeah.
You can meet him.
Great.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks for joining in.
Thanks a lot.